Hi, I decided to do an introduction to this video because this video was probably the most personal video that I've ever produced. Recently I suffered the breakup of a 4-year relationship with a girl who I was very much in love with. And like anybody who goes through an unwanted breakup, I felt like it broke me. After a couple of weeks, I was watching TV and 500 Days of Summer came on. And while I was watching it, I realised that a lot of the movie resonated with me. And I saw something in it that I hadn't seen in any other romantic movie. This video essay is about that experience. I hope you all enjoy it. What is 500 Days of Summer about? On the surface, it looks like a romantic comedy centering around the idea of unrequited love and breakups. But it's not. It's really about how we delude ourselves in relationships and place unrealistic expectations and ideals on the significant other. 500 Days of Summer tells the story of how Tom meets the girl of his dreams, Summer, and spends his time trying to win her affections with his overtly romantic ideals. Told in parallel is the story of the eventual decline and breakup of that same relationship. While watching the movie, I identified with Tom and his pain because I was going through the same thing. I understood that level of rejection when you give yourself so completely to someone and they don't value what you've given them. What I realised was that Tom had made Summer completely responsible for his level of happiness. And that's a big weight to carry. The film is a great examination of how we blind or delude ourselves in relationships. One of the first things the film shows us is how Tom is enamored with even the smallest detail and idiosyncrasies of Summer.
I love her smile, I love her hair, I love her knees. I love this heart-shaped birthmark she has on her neck. I love the way she sometimes licks her lip before she talks. I love the sound of her laugh. I love
At the beginning of the relationship, when things are fresh and exciting, our brains are flooded with hormones which warp our opinion of the things that we see, hear and feel. So things which in the long run are annoying habits or features, in the beginning feel like just the thing we've been looking for. The film presents the idea that Summer was always a flawed person, who never actually changed at all. What changed was Tom's perception of Summer. In the beginning, he had an unrealistically romanticized view of her, which created an unrealistic and impossible image for her to live up to. Later, we're shown the same scene, but with a different narration, a far more bitter narration.
I hate Summer. I hate her crooked teeth. I hate her 1960s haircut. I hate her knobby knees. And I hate her cockroach-shaped splotch on her neck. I hate the way she smacks her lips before she talks. I hate the way she sounds when she laughs.
What Tom doesn't realize is that he isn't bitter because Summer changed. He's bitter because Summer isn't who he expected her to be. In the scenes detailing the decline, Tom's perspective often shows Summer becoming colder and more distant. While he attempts to get closer, she pulls back. We're shown examples of how things they used to have fun doing become things in which she is disinterested. In Tom's eyes, she was simply not participating like she used to. But there are many occasions when we can see that she was actually pretty clear about what she wanted.
Tell you that I'm not really looking for anything serious.
But Tom chose to see that detail as playing hard to get, or just having her defences up, and just assumed that his romantic and thoughtful attitude would automatically win her over without actually considering her feelings. The idea that the problem is Tom is echoed by his friends and his sister, who allude to the fact that this has happened before. But even after they try to correct his perception into a more balanced and realistic one, he's completely resistant to it. Tom unknowingly sabotaged his own relationship with Summer. He ignored the actual characteristics of Summer in favour of supporting and maintaining his own unrealistic dream girl. When Summer behaved in a way which was natural for her, but contradictory to Tom's fantasy, he became frustrated and acted in a variety of negative and damaging ways. Tom's belief that Summer became disinterested for no reason is another fantasy, one created to protect his fragile ego. It was easier for him to believe that Summer lost interest and slowly drifted away than to accept that it was his unrealistic expectation which caused her to take a step back. The reality, of course, is that Summer had always maintained she didn't want a serious relationship, and each time Tom had moved further into serious territory, she moved further away. Instead of seeing her as a fun-loving person who enjoyed life and had a playful attitude, he chose to believe that he was responsible for that playful, fun-loving character, that it was their unique connection which brought that out in her. From the start, Tom wanted and expected Summer to be a particular person and behave in a particular way. The film successfully shows that it was that expectation which drove them apart. Tom even acknowledges that his expectation was unrealistic.
It's these cards. And the movies and the pop songs, they're to blame for all the lies and the heartache, everything. And we're responsible. I'm responsible.
But again, he doesn't accept that he could have changed that by simply appreciating reality instead of living a fantasy. Had Tom simply accepted what he was presented and allowed Summer to be herself without the weight of expectation, there's a good chance that they might have worked out, because the pressure that comes with expectation wouldn't have driven a wedge between them. And if it did, Tom would have recognized why that was happening and been able to manage it better. In one of the movie's later sequences, we're actually shown a side-by-side comparison of exactly how Tom's unfair expectations are causing him problems. Before he has ever reached the party, he has already decided that he was going to win Summer back without even considering her perspective at all. When the reality doesn't match that expectation, it sends him spiraling. Though it's not explicitly said, I think even their final encounter is in fact part of Tom's romanticized way of finally coming to terms with the end of the relationship, as it's Summer explaining things to him in the same emotionally open way that he has fantasized about for much of the movie. In some ways, it's progress, because he's finally considering her perspective, even if it might not be real at all. And this conversation and acceptance is a part of breakups that many of us lack, myself included. The lesson hidden inside 500 Days of Summer is to enter relationships with an open mind and not expect people to live up to an untenable fantasy. I think to some level, we're all guilty of ignoring reality in favor of trying to obtain and maintain a romanticized relationship which simply isn't possible. This movie in particular resonated with me so much while watching it, because it helped me to realize that maybe I'd done the same thing as Tom. Sometimes, maybe I'd ignored reality in favor of the fantasy. It's also a useful tool to help make those bad breakups easier, because when you see a real person instead of a fantasy, it's much easier to let them go.